If there is one word that should be at the very top of the Haval Jolion Hybrid brochure, it's value. This is the flagship version. It gets tons of premium style goodies and it's less than 40k drive away. And there's a cheaper version and that one is less than 33k on the road. And in a world where Japanese hybrid prices are only heading one way and that's up, that makes this Chinese SUV something of a bargain. The question is though, does it have more to offer than just kindness on your bank account? Or to put it another way, is it both cheap and cheerful? Or is it too much of the former and not enough of the latter? There's only one way to find out, so let's get up close and personal with the new Haval Jolion Ultra Hybrid. The Haval Jolion HEV or hybrid electric vehicle can be had in three grades, the Premium, the Luxe and our flagship Ultra, with drive-away pricing stepping from $32,990 to $35,990 and topping out at $38,990. They're all pretty well equipped to be fair, but the Ultra gets the best stuff. Building on the Luxe grade's 18-inch alloys, the digital dash of the big 12.3-inch central screen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, by adding a big panoramic sunroof, wireless charging and ambient interior lighting, and there's LED lighting all around too. Be warned though that some of the functionality is less than intuitive. I actually had to ring the company to figure out how to activate the heated seats, for example, which requires a right-hand swipe to the infotainment screen. Still, once you know how to do it, it's all easy enough. While still not what you might describe as subtle, I actually think this Haval Jolion Hybrid is among the best looking models in the brand's range. Now, part of that is down to the blacked out design treatment on our car with the black mirrors, the black door handles, the black grille surrounds, all of which look pretty cool. But I also think it's down to the fact that it just doesn't appear to be trying too hard, which is not necessarily something you can say about all Chinese vehicle design philosophies. In fact, I see a little bit of Germany in there, a bit of Mercedes-Benz AMG line perhaps. Either way, I think it looks pretty good, but there are some design quirks. Now, the first of those is the fact that these massive spoilers and the big wheel arches, they make it look a little sportier than it feels from behind the wheel, even though I'm sure they have aerodynamic benefits for the hybrid. But also, the body itself seems so much bigger than the platform. And by that I mean that the bodywork extends so far out over the wheels that from some angles, they disappear altogether. It just kind of looks a bit weird in places. Inside, it's a fairly familiar cabin experience, but I've got to say some of the materials used, especially on the seats and on the dash, are really quite nice, especially given the price point. The screens are big and clear and easy to use too, and there's wireless charging and quite a nice rotary shifter as well. But there are a couple of quirks, one of which is I just can't help but feel this wheel is too big. Maybe it's all in my mind, but it just feels a bit like you're driving a bus, and I've never ever been a fan of under center console storage, which is also where the USB-A charge ports are located. It's hard to access. It requires these Cirque du Soleil antics to either plug things in or get things out of the storage. So I'll show you this in just a second, but the hybrid tech does eat into the boot space a little bit, but happily there's no impact on the back seat experience. I'm 175 centimeters sitting behind my own driving position, and as you can see, I've got plenty of knee room and plenty of headroom. And because there's no bulky transmission tunnel, there is actually room in here for three adults to sit fairly comfortably too. Now elsewhere, I gotta say, I love the fact that the seat material from up front has made its way to the back. These are comfortable and they feel nice under the touch. There's twin USB connections, air vents for backseat riders, two cup holders in this pull down divider, there's two more up front, and there's bottle holders on each of the doors too. So it is a nice experience back here, even if it does feel just a little bit more basic compared to the front seat experience. Step around to the boot and you'll find a fairly deep but also fairly shallow boot space, mostly because under the first layer you'll find a tyre repair kit, and below that a whole bunch of hybrid tech which eats into the boot space. Haval reckons you'll find 255 litres with it configured the way that it is right now, with that number growing to 916 litres with those rear seats folded flat. The towing capacity is 1,300 kilograms braked, which isn't massive, but is also usable for smaller things. Now, I know by now you know how a hybrid works, so I'm not going to bore you with another explanation here, but know this. This one pairs a 1.5 litre petrol engine with a 70 kilowatt electric motor for a total 140 kilowatts and 375 newton meters. They're not bad outputs for a vehicle this size either. Now, the engine pairs with what the brand calls a dedicated hybrid transmission, but it's really a CVT, and it sends its power to the front wheels. Now, it's pretty efficient too. In fact, Haval reckons you'll see 5.1 litres per 100 kilometres on the combined cycle, which means, thanks to the big 55 litre tank, you should be able to travel more than 1,000 kilometres on a single tank of fuel, which means Sydney to Brisbane or Sydney to Melbourne without having to stop to fill up. So So, welcome to the driver's seat of the Haval Jolion Ultra Hybrid, or as the brand calls it, a HEV or hybrid electric vehicle. I guess they're trying to capitalize on the electric vehicle craze at the moment, but it is a conventional hybrid. And first I want to start with something of an admission. I did drive the previous Jolion, and I gotta say, I just wasn't that big a fan of it. It felt a little bit under-engineered, it felt a bit rough around the edges. I just didn't really like the way it drove. But the Chinese brands move pretty quickly, and this one is a significant improvement on that model. You can tell almost immediately the moment you climb behind the wheel. Now, you remember I was telling you about the engine outputs on offer from the hybrid powertrain. They don't sound like heaps, but actually it's definitely enough to get this up and moving. That's flat-footed acceleration, and that's 50 k's an hour. There's nothing in the way of lag when you put your foot down. It's fairly instantaneous power. And while it certainly doesn't push you back in your seat, it does feel like enough to keep this moving around the city. It never feels underpowered. The downside, I guess, is that it does feel a little bit rough and a little bit loud when you really put your foot down. You can hear that engine working, and it sounds like it's working hard. And there's a little bit of wind and tyre noise in the cabin as well. Even above 50, the power certainly doesn't ease up. Again, it's not lightning fast, but I definitely wouldn't describe it as underpowered either. But you probably heard that soundtrack of the engine accompanying that heavy acceleration. That might get a little bit grating over time. But I guess the most important point I'd make about this car is this: we really haven't spent quite enough time behind the wheel of this to give it an absolute locked-on certainty score for its driving. So again, you'll have to wait till we get into the office for that. But at a glance, at the surface level, I've got to say it does feel like a vast improvement, and the Haval and the Jolion are really taking steps in the right directions. Now, all the usual active safety kit is present and accounted for, and it actually doesn't seem too intrusive, save for the driver monitor, which does bong at you and activates the emergency lane keeping whenever you take your eyes off the road, even for a moment. The Haval Jolion Hybrid is covered by a 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty with 5 years of roadside assist and an 8-year battery warranty. There's 5 years of cap price servicing too, which limits the first 5 years of ownership to $1,650. While it's not the most engaging or exciting drive experience on offer in Australia, it is one hell of a value and practicality proposition. Plus, it's absolutely swimming with high-tech, premium tech, especially at this price point. So I guess it's up to you which of those you value more. Now remember, this is just scratching the surface of the Haval Jolion story. So to read my full review on this car and on all of its competitors, head on over to carsguide.com.au.